Nurses of Reddit, what's the most entertaining thing someone has said coming off of anesthesia? When I got my wisdom teeth out, the nurse was trying to wake me up and said, "Okay, it's time to open your eyes. Can you open your eyes for me?" I said, "Say please." She said please very nicely, and I opened my mouth as wide as I could. A man asked me if his body parts still belong to him, and I still think about it. Mayo. Patient here with a great story nonetheless. When I got my wisdom teeth removed, I apparently had a religious experience. I'm agnostic. I told my mom, who was with me, that I saw people walking on water. Next, I kept telling her that I saw Jesus. Apparently, when the female nurse came back into the room, I did the Catholic sign of the cross and whispered to my mom, "That's him, that's Jesus." The nurse lost her I had a male patient who, as he woke up, mumbled, "I'm not pregnant." Did a short stint in recovery as part of my graduate program. I got proposed to a couple of times. Same guy would walk past me in the corridor a day later and not recognize me. Not a nurse. My wife woke up from a surgery and started pointing into the middle of the room and in a soft voice said, F you and you. What's that smell?" She then looked over at me and says, "When did you get here, yara hat lol." She doesn't cuss much, so I got a good laugh out of it. ER tech here. We often do conscious sedations with ketamine to realign broken bones. I had a 10-year-old girl who snapped her arm on the trampoline. When she was coming out of the ketamine slumber, she asked why she saw God. Little freaky. She also snarfed down 4 PB&J sandwiches after, and I was impressed. The best has to be the sledding accident kid who snapped his tibia. When he was coming out of the ketamine sleep, he kept begging us not to tell his mom he smoked weed for the first time the day before. His mom was in the room while this was taking place. Not a nurse, but my twin sister started speaking fluent Spanish to my mom after she woke up from getting her wisdom teeth removed. We're half Puerto Rican on our mom's side, so we've grown up hearing Spanish, but neither of us had ever carried a fluent conversation with her in it. But apparently my doped up sister could. Woke up thinking I'd had sex with my doctor, and apologized to him for how bad it was. My brother got his wisdom teeth out not too long ago. When he woke up, he started laughing a lot, like he wasn't laughing super hard, but he was laughing for super long and it almost sounded monotone. After a couple minutes of just flatline laughter, he stopped and mumbled chicken like it's what he was laughing at. Don't know why, but it stopped him from laughing for a bit. We had to slide board a patient from the stretcher to his bed after an endoscopy. You put a board between bed and stretcher and then grab patient and slide them over to bed with sheet underneath them. My patient screamed "WEEE" and then proceeded to tell us that these are the best drugs ever and that it felt like the 60s again. I work in the OR. Funniest was a guy quickly sat straight up after extubation. We're all standing around him making sure he doesn't try to jump off the table. He looks at me and then slowly gives me double finger guns. Turns his head to another staff member and slowly gives them finger guns. Didn't say a word, just finger guns. A lot of people wake up really crazy. They start swinging or just get really restless on a narrow bed. It's nice when people wake up sleepy and I'll just bundle them up with blankies and roll out. Me. Coming out of it at the dentist's office. Me. You have to save them. Dentist. Save who? Me. The owls. Dentist. What owls? Me. The owls trapped inside the gas machine. They were hooting. I could hear them. You have to save them. I was coming out of anesthesia and the nurses in the recovery room were all poking fun at each other about which Hogwarts house they would be in. Me. According to my ex-wife, I'm a house elf. I once told the nurses to stop. I wasn't asleep yet. I wasn't ready. They laughed and said they were done. Another time I came out saying sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't. Almond Joy has nuts, mounds don't. No clue why I was singing this, but the nurses thought I was hilarious and let family know this happened. At that for a wisdom tooth removal. Woke up. Asked when they were putting me out. They said I was done. I then sat up and felt like the fun part of a week-long bender. I came out of it in the middle of a conversation with Gandalf. I was trying to sell him Tupperware. You sir have made me laugh for 5 minutes straight. So, did he buy your Tupperware? You've seen the way those hobbits wrap their cheese. They are a lovely folk, but if they tried to rattle embassy you'd have a leaf full of crumbs by the prancing pony. No. Emma. Gandalf. A traveling wizard like yourself needs something hearty, and you're in luck. I'm willing to trade for some of your wonderful sky flowers, though my wife has insisted she be here to hear the exact instructions on the dragony one. Yes. Also not a nurse, but I had ankle surgery last year. They gave me animal crackers after, and I remember being really upset that I didn't realize until the last cracker that I forgot to look at the animals and appreciate each one. One does not simply eat animal crackers without acknowledging which animal they're about to eat, but in your case I think you had a good excuse. Not a nurse, but was in charge of my sister after she got her wisdom teeth out. Got her in the car and she was bawling. Wouldn't stop crying and trying to put her fingers in her mouth. Mind you, she was 20 at the time. I got her back to my apartment and she's having a hard time staying upright, so I'm helping support her as we walk up to the door. She's still crying, but is now trying to do a heel click. We almost fall over. My neighbor sees us and runs over to help open my door. We get her inside. She then proceeds to spend another hour crying about how she wants to write a Harry Potter Pride and Prejudice crossover ballet, in which she would play Dumbledore, Lizzie Bennet, and Emma Darcy herself. I then asked her who I would play. She said Hedwig and Emma Collins. That's when it stopped being entertaining. When I was in high school I was just getting put under and feeling loopy for a wisdom teeth operation, and the nurse was making small talk with me and told me she graduated from the same high school I went to and was on the dance team, and I told her no you weren't. You have to be pretty to be on the dance team right before blacking out. I think about this sometimes before I go to sleep at night. Nurse, I am so sorry to do you like that when you were just doing your job. Not a nurse, but I had dental surgery at a hospital in Bangkok a few years ago. I had pretty much come out of anesthesia and was just waiting for the doctor and discharge stuff. There was this giant Aussie guy also in recovery, and he kept trying to sneak away. Like he'd look around, grab his IV pole, and tiptoe toward the exit. The nurses were just kind of herding him around the room back to his bed. Then he'd do the same thing again. The nurse with me asked if I wanted the curtains closed, and I was like, hell no. I just had major oral surgery and this is funny. So she and I sat there for nearly 20 minutes watching his shenanigans. Nurses have patience like saints, I swear. Guy wakes up in the recovery room after left knee replacement surgery and starts talking with his wife. Well, at least I still have two good knees. Oh honey, she replied. You just had knee surg. He interrupts in a loud voice. My right knee and my weenie. Not anesthesia but post-op in ICU. PT had brain surgery for a neuroma. He had a brain drain in but otherwise was fine. Me. Hi sir, I have your dinner. Do you need help? PT. No, I can do it. What is it? Me. Whitefish. PT. Ugh. Me. It's brain food. PT. If that's the case I need a whale. I laughed for 2 hours after that. Middle-aged woman with obvious surgical enhancements coming off of anesthesia from a diagnostic procedure. I was listening to her lungs with my stethoscope and told her alright, nice big breaths. She said thanks, I just got them done. It was so hard to compose myself. Haha, now I say deep breaths. Haha, this is the first one to make me laugh out loud. Was a student nurse for 2 semesters. On a placement in a post-op ward. An old guy had a reaction to the aesthetic. Thought he was back in the Korean War. Kept trying to get out of bed to help his mates. The 2 nurses couldn't figure out how to stop him. They called security. Meanwhile, I walked up and my most officious sounding voice said to the nurse I was partnered with, stand down lieutenant. I'll take over from here. She looked confused but moved aside. I said to him, soldier, you took some shrapnel. You need to rest recover. Now stand down or I'll have you court-martialed for insubordination. Understood. He looked at me for a second, looked around, replied nice loud yes mom, and went back to bed. This is exactly how to respond to anyone having a hallucination in a situation like this. Do not try and tell them it's not real. You will only make them anxious and angry. Very well done. At the dentist I woke up like a shot from anesthesia. Got up and ran through the office, dental assistants chasing me. I ran to the washroom still drugged up, looked into the mirror and while pawing my numb face said I need to make sure I don't look like Joan Rivers. A friend of mine woke up after surgery and stated, I want to eat a Christmas tree. Easier ways to increase fiber intake. Maybe he was just craving vitamin C. A 15-year-old was waking up and talking more and trying to get out of bed before he was ready. Bud, where are you going? I've got to go to my locker, buddy. You're in the hospital. You can't go to your locker right now. So where are you trying to go? Serious expression the f year. You were all set for a quick 20-minute adventure, in and out. It wasn't something he said, but I had a patient in his 50s attempt to motorboat his wife when she came to pick him up. She was mortified, and I managed to keep a straight face while giving her all his post-op instructions. Not a nurse, but I underwent a procedure and had to be put under anesthesia. According to my dad, who was in the room, the doctor asked me how I was feeling and I said to him, I feel like can I go back to hell? It was really funny at the time. Not a nurse, but when I got all 4 of my wisdom teeth out at once, I woke up and immediately asked, can I eat KFC now? And they all got a laugh out of that. That was the only thing I cared about. Probably not as entertaining as I hoped, but I got a laugh out of them, so yay. After having my wisdom teeth out, I proudly declared that I was a penguin. I worked in an ER and we had a patient, guy about 18-20 years old, who had a spontaneous pneumothorax, collapsed lung. Not quite as bad as it sounds. He basically had a small area of air between his lung and chest wall. We had to put in a small chest tube to remove the air. We did a moderate sedation, basically kinda knock him out but not put him completely under. One of the meds used was Versed, which has an amnesic effect, so they don't remember anything. Procedure is done and I'm monitoring him. When he starts coming around, he looks at me and asks, so, when are we going to do this thing? I said, we're already done. Look at your chest. Had a drain dressing in place. He looks down, then looks at me and says, dude, how do you do that? Maybe not the best story here, but it happened 20+ years ago and it still makes me laugh. Not a nurse, but I woke up from surgery pissed because the anesthesiologist told me he was just giving me oxygen, but then next thing I knew I woke up in post-op. I told the nurse that be lied to me and she just said okay and went to get my parents, lol. Not a nurse, but after I got my wisdom teeth out I was convinced I was Clark Kent and kept taking my glasses off and mumbling I'm Superman. And then I cried when they told me they were going to put my teeth in the incinerator because for some reason drugged me thought they meant all my teeth. Obligatory. Not a nurse, but a friend of mine said that one of her patients was convinced he was a burrito and needed her to sprinkle cilantro on him. Patient here went on a long rant about how Bugs Bunny appeared in my dreams and told me lies. No idea how my brain came up with that one. My grandmother gets very angry when she comes out of anesthesia and swears everyone abused her during surgery, the night after her hip surgery, and lots of angry accusations and having to be tied to the bed for a good portion of the day. I spent the night with her at the hospital. She had a confusing and restless night and was in a lot of pain, but very out of it. The next day, the doctor came in to talk to her about being moved to the rehab center. She started ranting about how it better not be the same place she slept last night because they made her sleep on the concrete floor of a barn. Everyone tried reasoning with her, but she would just point at me and say, ask that girl. She was there. After a few minutes of increasingly agitated ranting, I just said, it's a different place, nanny, and that settled that.